It was 9:47 in the morning when the screen went black. Not a time for technical failures. Not a time for junior analysts to learn the difference between preparation and performance. Hollis Crane stood at the head of the Meridian Consulting main conference room with 200 employees watching him and a dead display behind him and his heart slamming against his ribs in a rhythm that felt like it might crack bone. The silence came first. Not the helpful kind, the waiting for failure kind. The kind where a dropped pen sounds like a gunshot and every head turns toward you instead of the noise. Someone behind him coughed. A chair creaked. Phones appeared in hands that had been taking notes 30 seconds earlier. He clicked the remote. Clicked it again. Nothing. His laptop screen still glowed on the podium. The presentation was there, slide 12 of 24, the data intact, the conclusions clear. But the connection to the main display had died somewhere between his machine and the massive screen that dominated the far wall. Then Cormac Vale spoke. Did anyone actually check this before wasting 200 people's morning? The voice came from the back of the room. Low. Clinical. Almost bored. The tone of someone commenting on whether they'd already decided was unremarkable. Hollis's hand stopped moving on the remote. The room didn't laugh. That would have been easier. Laughter was cruel, but it was honest. This was worse. People looked down at notebooks. At phones. At anything except the junior analyst standing frozen at the podium. The senior partner in the front row, Whitmore, 53 years old and 30 years at Meridian, studied his pen with sudden, intense interest. Agreement without words. 200 people agreeing that Hollis Crane had wasted their morning. He finished the presentation from memory. He didn't remember deciding to do it. His body made the choice while his mind was still processing the silence. His hands found the laptop screen and his mouth found words and he walked them through 12 remaining slides he could not see. Data points he had to recite. Financial models he had to build in the air without any visual anchor. His voice stayed steady. It was the only part of him that did. When the applause came, it was thin. Obligatory. People were already gathering their things, checking watches, angling toward the exits. Whitmore walked past without a glance. 2 senior consultants followed him, heads bent together, voices too low to carry. Hollis reached his cubicle at 10:12 a.m. and sat down and discovered his hands were shaking so badly he could not hold his pen. He sat like that for a long time, staring at the pen, listening to the floor hum with the ordinary noise of a Thursday morning. Phones ringing, keyboards clicking, someone laughing 3 rows away about something that had nothing to do with him. At 2:47 p.m., a shadow fell across his desk. Hollis looked up. Cormac Vale stood at the entrance to his cubicle. Tall, broad-shouldered. The kind of presence that made fluorescent lights feel dimmer and open floors feel smaller. He was holding 2 coffees. One of them was a $12 oat milk cortado from the cafe on the 4th floor. The kind Hollis ordered when he was working late. The kind he had not ordered today. I didn't check if you were okay before I said that, Cormac said. I should have. He set the coffee on the desk and walked away before Hollis could answer. Hollis stared at that coffee for 10 full minutes. Then he poured it out in the break room sink where no one could see. The coffee kept coming. Every morning for the next 2 weeks, Hollis arrived at his desk to find the same $12 cortado waiting. Still hot. Still perfect. No note. No eye contact from across the floor. Just the coffee, appearing like clockwork, as if Cormac Vale had memorized his schedule without ever asking what it was. He poured out the first 3. On the 4th day, Sully Garrett leaned over the cubicle divider. Sully was 23, a beater with an encyclopedic knowledge of office gossip and the self-preservation instincts of a golden retriever. He had been Hollis's only real ally on the strategy floor, not because he was brave, but because he was too curious to stay away from anything that looked like a story. You know who's leaving those, right? Sully asked. Hollis didn't look up from his spreadsheet. Yes. So why are you wasting $12 of coffee every morning? It's not mine. It's on your desk. That doesn't make it mine. Sully gave him a long look. The look of someone who wanted to say more and had enough survival instinct to stay quiet. On the 7th day, Hollis drank it. He didn't plan to. His hand just reached for the cup while his mind was somewhere else, buried in a client retention model, chasing an anomaly in the quarterly projections, and by the time he registered the taste, the coffee was half gone. He looked up. Across the open floor, Cormac Vale was watching him. Not staring. Not obvious. Just present. The way a fixed point stays fixed while everything else moves around it. Their eyes met for half a second. Then Cormac looked away, back to his own screen, as if nothing had happened. Something in Hollis's chest tightened. He did not have a name for it. That afternoon, Cormac appeared at his cubicle again. Walk with me. Not a question. Not quite a demand. Something in between, the way Cormac said most things. Like he was giving you an option while making it clear there was only one correct answer. Hollis almost said no. The coffee was still warm in his stomach. The memory of the presentation was still raw in his chest. Nothing about this man had ever suggested he was safe to trust. But the coffee had been perfect. Every single morning. And that specificity meant Cormac had been paying attention longer than the disaster. He followed. They walked the perimeter of the 47th floor. Past the glass-walled conference rooms where junior analysts practiced pitches no one would ever see. Past the row of partner offices with their closed doors and muffled phone calls. Past the break room where Hollis had poured out 3 coffees and stared at the drain like it might offer him an explanation. Cormac didn't speak. Neither did Hollis. At the end of the circuit, Cormac stopped beside the elevators. There's a client crisis tonight, he said. Supply chain contract dispute. The strategy division is staying late. You should be in the room. It was not an invitation. It was information. Delivered flat, without expectation, as if Cormac were reading a weather report that happened to include Hollis's career. Are you telling me to stay? I'm telling you that if you want to be taken seriously, you need to be visible when decisions are being made. Cormac paused. Not just when presentations fail. Then he walked away. Hollis stayed late. The client crisis lasted 7 hours. By the time the final email went out, it was after 10. By the time Hollis packed his things and made it to the elevator, it was 11. The doors opened. Cormac was already inside. The elevator was a glass-walled box suspended above 4 to 7 floors of city lights. At night, with the building mostly empty, it felt like falling upward through someone else's skyline. The doors closed. The car began its descent. And Hollis felt it. The suppressor patch on his inner wrist, the one he had applied 14 hours ago, the one that was supposed to last 24, was failing. He could feel the adhesive loosening, the way it always did when he had been stressed too long, sweating too much, pushing his body past the point where industrial-grade chemicals could keep up with the damage he was doing to himself. The scent hit the enclosed space before he could do anything about it. Rain. Clean cedar. Unmistakably Omega. Unmistakably him. Cormac went completely still. His hand moved toward the elevator panel. For one horrible second, Hollis thought he was reaching for the emergency stop, trapping them here, in this 6x6 box, with his scent flooding the air and Cormac's alpha instincts screaming at him to respond. His hand hovered, then dropped. How long have you been suppressing? Cormac's voice was rough, barely controlled. Nothing like the bored, clinical tone from the presentation. Nothing like the measured, informational tone from the afternoon walk. This was something else entirely, something that sounded like it cost him to produce. Hollis's back hit the elevator wall. Since I started here. Since before. It's none of your business. Cormac didn't move closer. That was the first thing that registered through the panic. He moved back, pressing himself against the opposite wall, maximizing distance in a space that barely had any distance to give. His jaw was tight. His hands were at his sides, fingers curled into loose fists. It is, he said, if you're hurting yourself to stay invisible. The doors opened. Hollis walked out fast. His legs were unsteady. His heart was beating wrong. Somewhere behind him, footsteps followed, not close, not aggressive, just there. He reached his car and spun around. Stop following me. Cormac stopped. 10 feet away. Hands still at his sides. I'm not trying to. You humiliated me in front of the entire division. You've been leaving coffee on my desk for 2 weeks like that means something. And now you're in an underground parking garage at 11 at night after my suppressor failed and I'm supposed to believe you're not going to. I know what this place does to people like you. Cormac's voice cut through his. Quiet. Hard. Not defensive. I've watched them root your projects away from clients. I've heard what the partners say when you're not in the room. I've watched 2 analysts from your cohort get pushed out in the last 6 months for the same cultural fit language they're starting to use about you. And I'm the one who made it worse. I put a target on you. In front of everyone. Hollis's breathing was uneven. The parking garage hummed with ventilation fans and the distant drip of water from old pipes. Why do you care now? He asked. You've been here 5 years. You've watched people like me get pushed out and said nothing. Why now? Cormac didn't answer right away. Then, because you finished that presentation from memory. You didn't flinch. You didn't ask for help. You didn't even look at me when I said it. You just kept going. And I have not been able to stop thinking about it since. The silence that followed was different from the conference room silence. That silence had been judgment. This silence was something Hollis did not have language for. Go home, Hollis, Cormac said quietly. I'll see you tomorrow. Hollis got in his car, drove away, watched Cormac in the rearview mirror, standing alone in the empty garage, hands still at his sides, 10 feet of distance he had not closed even once. The mirror curved and he disappeared. The email from HR arrived on a Tuesday morning at 8:47 a.m. Hollis read it 3 times before the words stopped swimming. Routine efficiency review scheduled. Please prepare portfolio of last 6 months' work for partner assessment. Meeting date, November 4th. It was not routine. Junior analysts did not get efficiency reviews unless someone wanted them gone. He had been at Meridian long enough to know the pattern by heart. First the review. Then the performance concerns. Then the severance package that was technically voluntary and functionally mandatory. He had watched it happen to Myra Chen in March and to David Okonkwo in June. Both of them had been omegas. Both of them had been told they were not the right cultural fit. He called Sully from the stairwell. Someone wants me fired. I know. Sully's voice was tight. I already heard. Whitmore's office initiated it, but someone had to request it first. I'm trying to find out who. Does it matter who? It matters if it's someone who has the power to follow through. Hollis spent that night pulling every project file he had ever touched. Client emails, reports, presentations, financial models, everything that could prove he had done the work, that he was worth keeping, that he was not the liability his suppressor patch suggested he was. At 2 a.m., his phone buzzed. Unknown number. I heard about the review. I'm coming over. Hollis stared at the screen. He had never given Cormac his phone number. He had never given Cormac his address. How did you hear? Just buzz me up when I get there. 20 minutes later, Cormac was at his door. Laptop under one arm. 2 coffees in his hands, oat milk cortados, still hot. As if there were a cafe open at 2 a.m. that Hollis did not know about. If you'd like to support this channel, consider joining Patreon, where you'll also get access to exclusive and uncensored stories I can't post on YouTube. I'm helping you prep, Cormac said, walking past him into the apartment like he had been there 100 times. And I'm finding out who requested it. You can't just. Kitchen table. They worked side by side until sunrise. Shoulders almost touching. Documents spread across the tiny kitchen table in overlapping layers, financial reports, client emails, performance metrics, project summaries. Cormac read everything. Asked questions. Made notes in the margins with a pen that left small black smudges on his fingers. At 4 a.m., his hand brushed Hollis's wrist reaching for the same spreadsheet. Neither of them moved away. The contact lasted maybe 3 seconds. Long enough for Hollis to feel the warmth of Cormac's skin. Long enough for his pulse to stutter once and then steady. Long enough for something to shift in the air between them that had not been there before. At 6 a.m., the city starting to lighten outside the windows, Cormac said quietly, I won't let them erase you. Hollis looked at him. Why? The question came out rawer than he intended. You don't owe me anything. Cormac didn't answer right away. He was looking at the window, at the pale grey light beginning to outline the buildings across the street. Because I spent 5 years being the kind of person who watched things happen and said nothing, he finally said. And I don't want to be him anymore. He turned back to Hollis. That's not an answer about you. I know that. But it's the only one I have. Hollis held his gaze for a long moment. Thank you for the coffee, he said. Something shifted in Cormac's expression. Not quite a smile. But close. You're welcome. 3 days later, Ren Faraday sat down across from Hollis in the ground floor cafe. Ren was from his analyst cohort. They had started on the same day, survived the same orientation, shared the same terrified looks during their first partner meetings. But where Hollis kept his head down, Ren kept their eyes open. They noticed everything, remembered everything, and right now, they looked like they were carrying something that needed to be set down. I need to tell you something about Cormac Vale, Ren said, before you get in any deeper. The sandwich in Hollis's hand suddenly tasted like nothing. What about him? There was an efficiency review. 3 months after you started. Ren's voice was low, careful. He initiated it. I saw the request in the shared drive before it got buried. He flagged you for insufficient client readiness and cultural misalignment. Those exact words. The cafe noise faded to a distant hum. I have screenshots, Ren continued. I kept them because I thought it was cruel. You were the best analyst in that cohort. Everyone knew it. And he tried to get you fired anyway. Show me. Ren pulled out their phone. The date stamps were clear. The language was unmistakable. Clinical, cold, the same kind of language Cormac had used in the conference room when he asked if anyone had checked the presentation. Insufficient client readiness. Cultural misalignment. Recommend formal review of continued employment. Hollis set down the sandwich. Set down the coffee. Thank you for telling me, he said. Are you okay? No. He left the cafe. Walked back to his desk. Did not look at Cormac's side of the floor. That evening, his phone buzzed. Cormac's name on the screen. He let it ring until voicemail. He did not answer the next call either. Or the one after that. For 3 days, he did not answer anything at all. On the third night, Cormac showed up at his apartment. Hollis opened the door. Did not step back. Did not invite him in. Just stood in the doorway with his arms crossed and 3 days of silence between them like a wall that had been built too fast and mortared with something still wet. Say what you came to say from there. Cormac looked terrible. That was the first thing Hollis noticed. Shadows carved deep under his eyes. Jaw tight enough to crack teeth. The kind of exhaustion that came from not sleeping, not from working. What happened? Cormac asked. 3 days ago we were fine. Now you won't even look at me. Did you file an efficiency review on me? 3 months after I started. The color drained from Cormac's face. It was the first time Hollis had ever seen him look afraid. Long silence. Yes. Hollis started to close the door. Cormac's hand caught it. Not forcing, just stopping. The way you stop something from falling. I filed it, he said. And I buried it the same week. I never submitted it to HR. I killed it before it went anywhere. I can show you the email. The timestamp. The contact I called to make sure it was dead. That doesn't make it better. You still thought I deserved to be fired. I didn't think you deserved it. Cormac's voice cracked on the last word. A fissure in the controlled surface. Something underneath showing through that he had clearly been trying to keep hidden. I wanted you gone because you made me feel incompetent just by existing. I had spent 5 years building a reputation. I was the youngest senior consultant in the firm's history. And you walked in and within 3 months you were producing work that made mine look like performance. I hated that. I hated that it came so easily to you. So I tried to get rid of you before anyone else noticed. The words landed. One after another. Precise. Deliberate. Ugly in a way that left no room for excuses. And then what? Hollis's voice came out flat. You had a change of heart. I saw your work. Cormac was gripping the doorframe now. Knuckles white. Really saw it. I opened a shared file by accident and spent 2 hours reading a report you had written on supply chain optimization for a client I had been failing with for 6 months. It was better than anything I had ever produced. Not by a little. By a distance I could not measure. And I realized I had almost destroyed someone brilliant because I could not handle not being the best in the room anymore. He met Hollis's eyes. Do you understand what that felt like? To realize you had become the kind of person who destroys talent just to protect your own ego? I buried the review that afternoon. Called the HR contact and told them it was a mistake and made sure it never went anywhere. And then I spent the next 6 months watching you and knowing what I had almost done and not knowing how to tell you. Until the presentation. Until the presentation. When I did it again. In public. In front of everyone. Because hurting you had already become a reflex and I did not know how to stop. Hollis stared at him. You don't get forgiveness for that just because you felt bad after. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Cormac's voice was steady now, but the steadiness itself felt fragile, held together by something that might break if tested too hard. I'm telling you the truth because you deserve to know what I am before you decide whether to let me stay. The hallway was silent. Somewhere below, a door opened and closed. The city hummed its endless hum. I need time, Hollis said. Cormac nodded, took his hand off the door, stepped back. Take whatever you need. Hollis closed the door, stood there, listened to Cormac's footsteps retreat down the hall. Slow, heavy, the sound of someone walking away because they had been asked to. He did not cry. He was too tired to cry. But he sat on the kitchen floor with his back against the cabinets and stared at the ceiling until the light outside the window faded from gray to black. For 1 week, Hollis watched him. The coffee kept appearing. Every morning. Same spot on the desk. Still hot. Still perfect. No notes. No expectation. Just proof, arriving quietly, that Cormac was still showing up even when Hollis gave him nothing in return. He saw Cormac defend a junior analyst in a partner meeting. The story spread through the floor within hours. Someone, Whitmore, according to Sully's breathless recounting, had made a dismissive comment about the analyst's cultural fit. The same language Cormac had used in the efficiency review against Hollis. Cormac had pushed back. Hard. Publicly. That language is coded, he had said, in front of 12 partners and half the senior consulting staff. If you have specific performance concerns, articulate them with evidence. If you're just uncomfortable with someone who doesn't look like your reflection, that's a you problem, not a them problem. The defense cost him visible standing. By the end of the week, Whitmore had stopped inviting Cormac to the private strategy meetings. People noticed. People talked. He's been doing that a lot lately, Sully told Hollis on Thursday. Pushing back on things he used to stay silent about. Defending people who don't have the rank to defend themselves. It's like something cracked open and he can't close it again. Maybe he doesn't want to close it, Hollis said. Are you still not talking to him? Not yet. But you're going to. Hollis looked across the floor. Cormac was at his desk, head down, working. The afternoon light caught the edge of his jaw and the tired slope of his shoulders. He looked smaller than he had a month ago. Or maybe Hollis was just seeing him differently now. Without the armor of reputation. Without the performance of authority. Just a man who had done something unforgivable and was trying anyway. I don't know, Hollis said. On day 6, he drank the coffee. On day 7, he sent a single text. I don't forgive you yet. But I believe you're trying to be different. That's enough for now. The reply came within 30 seconds. It's enough. The quarterly partner review meeting was supposed to be an honor. Junior analysts did not get invited to present in the executive boardroom. Not unless someone senior was advocating for them. Not unless someone with power had decided you were worth watching. When the invitation appeared in Hollis's inbox, he thought maybe someone had finally noticed the work he had been doing. Maybe the firm was not trying to push him out after all. He should have known better. The boardroom was dark wood and floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind of room designed to intimidate you into silence before you opened your mouth. 12 senior partners sat around the table. Whitmore occupied the head. Hollis stood at the foot with his laptop and his notes and a second suppressor patch on his wrist because he had been doubling doses since the elevator incident. Paranoid about another failure, pushing his body past its limits to ensure no one would ever smell him again. His presentation was solid. Financial models, growth projections, risk assessments, all the things that had kept him employed through 9 months of proving himself invisible enough to be useful. The partners were nodding. Whitmore had uncapped his pen. Then the adhesive loosened. The warmth spread under his skin first. Then the scent, rain and clean cedar, bleeding into the recycled boardroom air. The second patch was failing the same way the first one had. His body was rejecting the chemicals, pushing back against 2 years of suppression with a violence he could not control. Someone inhaled sharply. A partner 2 seats from Whitmore stopped writing mid-sentence. Another partner, Hollis did not catch which one, set down their pen with a click that echoed through the sudden stillness. Whitmore looked up. "Mr. Crane, are you feeling unwell?" 12 pairs of eyes. 12 people who had just learned something about him that he had spent 2 years hiding. 12 people who now had a biological reason to root his projects away from clients, to question his stability, to decide that everything he had built was suddenly, retroactively, compromised. "I'm fine." His voice did not shake. It was the only victory he could claim. "As I was saying, perhaps we should reconvene when you're stable." The words came from somewhere down the table. He did not see who spoke. It did not matter. The room was already emptying, people gathering papers, avoiding eye contact, angling toward the door with the same silent efficiency they had shown after the presentation collapse. Within 30 seconds, the boardroom was empty. Except for Cormac. He was the last to leave. Or the first to stay, depending on how you looked at it. He closed the door behind the retreating partners, crossed back to where Hollis stood at the head of the table, frozen, still gripping the remote, his half-finished presentation glowing on his laptop screen. "Tell me what you need." His voice was quiet, steady, the kind of voice you use with someone who is bleeding and trying not to show it. "I need to not be Omega in this building." Hollis's voice finally cracked, and he hated it. "I need to go back to yesterday when they did not know. I need." "You can't." Cormac stepped closer. "Not crowding. Just present. But I can make sure they don't use this against you." "How?" "You can't change what they just saw." "No. But I can make it clear that anyone who touches your projects or reassigns your work answers to me first." Hollis looked at him. His jaw was set. His eyes were dark with something Hollis did not have a name for. He looked like a man who had already made a decision and was just waiting for the consequences to arrive. "They'll punish you for that," Hollis said. "I know. Cormac. You're the best analyst this firm has hired in 5 years. If they're rooting you away from clients because of your designation, they're not protecting the firm. They're wasting talent because they're too old to see past biology." He paused. "And I'm done being silent about it." The boardroom lights hummed overhead. Outside the windows, the city glittered in the afternoon sun. "I don't know how to trust this," Hollis said quietly. "I don't know how to trust you." "Then don't trust me yet." Cormac's voice was steady. "Just let me prove it." 2 days later, Cormac was called into Whitmore's office. Hollis was not there. He heard about it afterward, from Sully, who heard it from an assistant who had been sitting outside the door. But the details were clear enough. Whitmore had been calm, clinical, the same tone Cormac had used in the conference room 9 months ago. "We're restructuring the client strategy team. You're being moved to an internal operations role. No client contact. No partnership track. Because I defended Hollis Crane. Because you've lost perspective. Personal entanglements cloud judgment. We need senior consultants who prioritize the firm." Cormac had repeated the words back. "Personal entanglements. You mean his designation. You mean you're sidelining him because you found out his Omega, and you're sidelining me because I refused to let you do it quietly. The silence that followed had been, according to the assistant, absolute. Hollis Crane is the best analyst this firm has hired in 5 years. If you're rooting him away from clients because of his designation, you're not protecting the firm. You're wasting talent because you're too old to see past biology. Clean out your office by Friday. Cormac walked out, took the elevator down to the strategy floor, told Hollis exactly what had happened. They were standing by his cubicle. People were watching. Of course they were watching. The whole floor had been watching them for weeks. The coffee, the walks, the way Cormac's attention had shifted from cruelty to something else entirely. You torpedoed your career for me, Hollis said. No. Cormac shook his head. I torpedoed my career because I finally said something I should have said 9 months ago. Before the presentation. Before the efficiency review. Before all of it. You could have stayed quiet. Kept your partnership track. And you would have been pushed out within 6 months. Your projects would have been reassigned. Your reputation would have been destroyed. All because of something you can't control and shouldn't have to hide. He met Hollis's eyes. I have spent 5 years being the person who stayed quiet. I am done with him. That has nothing to do with you and everything to do with me. Hollis did not know what to say. There were no words for what Cormac had done, what he had sacrificed. For a moment, he understood why people believed in things larger than themselves. Because sometimes someone did something that could not be explained by self-interest or strategy or survival. That night, Hollis asked the question he had been afraid to ask since Ren showed him the screenshots. They were in his apartment. Cormac was on the couch that was too small for him. His long legs stretched out and his tie loosened and his expression tired in a way that went deeper than exhaustion. He had been packing his office all afternoon. Tomorrow was his last day. When did you bury the efficiency review? Hollis asked. The exact day. Cormac pulled out his phone. Found the email. Read the timestamp. March 14th. The same week I filed it. March 14th. The date clicked into place like a key turning. That was the day I asked you a question in the strategy meeting. About client retention models. Cormac went very still. I remember. You didn't answer me. You looked at me like you had never seen me before. I thought I had said something stupid. Quietly, you said something that solved a problem I had been failing at for 6 months. In one question. He set the phone down. Ran a hand through his hair. I went back to my desk and pulled your file to see if I had missed something in your resume. That's when I found your supply chain report in the shared drive. I read the whole thing. It took 2 hours. When I finished, I sat there for another hour staring at the screen trying to understand what I had almost done. You buried the review because I made you feel stupid in a meeting. I buried it because you made me realize I would rather work with you than protect my ego. He paused. Neither version of me is pretty. I know that. The version of you that filed that review is real. I am not pretending I was not that person. I was. I am the person who tried to destroy someone because he made me feel inadequate. That is part of me. It will always be part of me. He looked at Hollis. But I am also the person who buried that review the same week. And I am the person who showed up at your apartment at 2 in the morning because I found out someone was trying to push you out. And I am the person standing here now, telling you the truth, because you deserve to know all of it before you decide. Long silence. Hollis said, I don't know how to trust that this version of you is the real one. The version of me that filed that review is real. The version of me that buried it is real. The version of me that humiliated you in front of 200 people is real. The version of me that has been leaving coffee on your desk for weeks is real. Cormac's voice was steady. I am not asking you to believe I am good. I am asking you to believe I am trying. And if that is not enough, it's enough. Hollis heard himself say the words before he decided to say them. For now, it's enough. Hollis's last day at Meridian came 2 weeks later. He had found another job. A smaller firm. One that promoted on merit instead of biology. One where he would not have to chemically erase himself to be respected. The exit interview was scheduled for Friday morning. His final presentation was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. He arrived without a suppressor patch. For the first time in 2 years, he walked into the Meridian building with his scent unmasked. Rain and clean cedar. Omega. Visible. Real. The elevator ride up to 47 was the longest of his life. Every floor that ticked past felt like a countdown. When the doors opened, the receptionist looked up and froze. Her expression flickered through surprise, confusion, and something that might have been respect. "Good morning," Hollis said. "Good morning, Mr. Crane." He walked onto the strategy floor. Conversations stopped. That was the first thing he noticed, the way silence rippled outward from his path. Heads turning. Phones lowering. 200 people watching the junior analyst who had spent 2 years hiding what he was walk through the open floor with his scent preceding him like a declaration. Cormac met him at the elevator. He had been waiting. "You're not masking," he said. "I'm done hiding what I am to make them comfortable." Cormac did not say anything, but something shifted in his expression. Pride, maybe. Relief. The kind of recognition that comes from watching someone do the thing you had been hoping they would do. They walked onto the floor together, side by side. Cormac's hand brushed Hollis's lower back, not claiming, just present. The gesture was so small that most people probably did not notice. But Hollis noticed. In the conference room, he presented his exit portfolio unmasked. His scent filled the space. No one commented. No one left. No one suggested he was unstable. Halfway through, Whitmore interrupted. "Mr. Crane, this is impressive work. Have you considered staying on in a revised capacity?" It was the closest thing to an admission of error that Meridian Consulting would ever offer. The firm that had sidelined Omegas for decades, that had routed his projects away from clients, that had pushed out analysts who did not fit their narrow definition of acceptable, that firm was asking him to stay. "No," Hollis said. "I have accepted an offer at a firm that does not require me to chemically erase myself to be respected." He finished the presentation, thanked the room, walked out. Cormac followed. In the elevator down, Hollis exhaled for the first time in hours. His whole body was shaking. Adrenaline and relief and something that felt dangerously close to joy. "That was the bravest thing I have ever watched someone do," Cormac said quietly. "I learned it from you." Hollis looked at him. "You chose honesty over safety. I figured I could too." Cormac reached for his hand. Hollis let him take it. 6 months later, they sat in a coffee shop across the street from the old Meridian building. The shop had terrible lighting and excellent espresso and a window seat that looked directly up at the 47th floor. Through the glass, Hollis could see the conference room where he had stood at the podium with his career collapsing around him. The cubicles where Cormac had left coffee every morning for weeks. The elevators where the suppressor patch had failed and something had shifted between them that neither of them had named yet. "Do you ever miss it?" Cormac asked, following his gaze. "I miss who I thought I would be if I survived it. But I do not miss the cost." Cormac nodded slowly. "I miss the person I was before I met you. He was easier to be. He did not have to think about whether he was hurting people. He just performed and collected wins and went home and slept fine. He did not know what it felt like to destroy someone and then spend months trying to undo it. But I would not go back. Not for anything." Across the street, someone from Meridian walked past the coffee shop window. Whitmore. He glanced in, recognized them, and kept walking. His expression was unreadable. "It did not matter. The whole floor watched you destroy me," Hollis said. "I know. Now the whole floor watches you follow me everywhere." Cormac smiled, a real smile, the kind that transformed his whole face. "Let them watch." Hollis reached across the table, took his hand. No hesitation, no fear. Just the quiet certainty of someone who had stopped hiding and found a place to belong. Through the window, the 47th floor glittered in the morning light. Somewhere up there, someone was probably watching. Someone was probably talking. The whole floor had watched him break, and now the whole floor watched him whole. He did not look away from Cormac. He did not need to. You know what I realized? Hollis said. What? You never actually begged. Cormac's smile flickered. I left coffee on your desk for 2 weeks. That's not begging. It felt like begging. Then you have never actually begged for anything in your life. Cormac considered this. You're right. But I would have. If you had needed me to. I would have done it in front of all of them. Hollis tightened his grip on Cormac's hand. The coffee was perfect. The silence was perfect. The city continued its endless noise outside the window, and neither of them moved. They did not need to. Sometimes the people told to stay invisible are simply waiting for someone brave enough to truly see them. Hollis Crane spent 2 years hiding his designation, swallowing his pride, surviving a system designed to break him, until one dangerous alpha chose him openly, lost everything protecting him, and proved that change is possible not because people are good, but because they choose every single day to be different. The whole floor watched Cormac Vale destroy him. The whole floor watched Cormac Vale chase him for months. And now the whole floor watches them hold hands across a cafe table, unashamed and whole and finally free. Not a victory. Not a defeat. Just a choice, made over and over, in full view of everyone who thought they would not last. And that choice, quiet, daily, unspectacular, is the only revenge that was ever going to matter.